Welcome to the Capstone Conversation, where you learn about what's happening in the greater East Bay. I am your host, Jared Asch. Today, we are looking at higher education in the East Bay with St. Mary's president, Roger Thompson. Roger has been on for months now. I've heard from people in Moraga and throughout the area, students and former students, that they've noticed a rapid change in the university and the vibe there. Can you talk a little bit about what is that atmospheric change at the school that people are talking about?
I'm glad they're telling you that, Jared, and I want to thank you for having me on. I really have looked forward to this, so thanks for the invitation. I think there's a few things happening at St. Mary's that are pretty exciting. Yes, I'm new. I'm in my first year, and I've tried to bring the energy that I think St. Mary's needs. This is a great place. It's a fantastic college, great academics, outstanding out of classroom experiences in a beautiful part of the country. You can't beat the East Bay. Contra Costa County is spectacular. What I've tried to do is encourage our team and build a team across St. Mary's that goes out and starts to spread the message of all the good things that are happening here. And one of the things that I felt really strongly about when I came was so many people would say to me, St. Mary's is a hidden gem. I'd always say the same thing to them. I'd always say, it's a gem, but it doesn't need to be hidden. And we've got to get out and tell our story a little bit better. And I think we're doing that. We had a record number of applications, the most applications to St. Mary's College in our 160 plus year history. I'm really proud of the team for that. I think we got out and we started talking about things in a much more proactive kind of way. Now we're just getting started. And so there's a long way to go. I also got out and tried to meet a lot of alumni all over the state of California. We called it the Golden State Gale Tour. And I was all over the Golden State from San Diego to, I guess the furthest north I went was Napa, but the Bay Area, Southern California, Sacramento, Fresno, Clovis, a lot of different places. The goal of that was just to get out and start meeting our alums, meeting people that care about St. Mary's and trying to build some energy of people talking about our campus. Must be resonating if you're hearing a few things, so that's good.
We are. And what are alums saying about their experience?
It's been one of the most rewarding things of the first 9 months of my job. When I meet alumni from St. Mary's across the board, they've had a fantastic experience. Their love for the place is deep. I've said to folks in my career, I've been around a lot of big alumni bases that are pretty enthusiastic about their school, but I'm not sure I've run into an alumni group that's more passionate than this one. It may not be as big as some of the other places I've worked as an alumni base, but boy, the energy is high. And people are really proud of St. Mary's, proud of the Gales. We had a great run in basketball this year, just as a side note. Really proud of the team, 29-6, advancing to the second round of the NCAAs. It's fun to be part of March Madness. Only 60-some schools get to do that. And so I'm really proud of them, and rugby and softball is doing great. And that doesn't even count all the student events that are happening on campus with music and theater and all the rest. But back to your original question, I think our alumni love St. Mary's. They had good experiences when they were here, and it's built that affinity that's really deep. And that's a great place from where to build.
And tell us more about your background. How did you arrive here at St. Mary's?
Yeah, for the last 14 years of my career, I was at the University of Oregon, where I served as the vice president for student services and enrollment management, and had the second largest organization on that entire campus. So pretty big division. And we were responsible for growing enrollment, which we did massively. 14 of the 15 largest classes in the history of that school came under my watch. Team effort, wasn't just me. We built new residence halls. We expanded the student experience. We did a lot of things. And I remember the day that the search firm called me about St. Mary's. And you get these calls periodically. And I remember the person saying to me, Roger, you're exactly what St. Mary's needs and wants. I laughed and I said, come on, really? You got to be, I'm what they want. They normally like to hire more people that have come up through the academic side. I've come up through the administrative side. He said, no, you fundraised, you did. Okay, sure. Send me the information. And I did it as a just to get off the phone, really. And when I got the information about St. Mary's, and I started reading through the leadership profile, I remember saying to my wife, they might really want me for this. Like, this is me. They're talking about me as I read this.
Mm.
And you throw your hat in the ring, and as the old joke goes, 4 interviews later, here I am. I was very excited. When you go through a number of different rounds like that, I was really enthusiastic about St. Mary's at the beginning. And as I went through the process, I only became more enthusiastic. By the time we got down to that last set of interviews and the campus visit and all that, I don't know what I would have done if I weren't selected. I really wanted to be here. I really thought this could be an opportunity, a community that I would enjoy being part of, and a place that could use some of the skills that I've developed over my 35 years in higher ed. So here I am.
No, that's good. When you started, you talked about the gem that is St. Mary's. A lot of people, even in here in the East Bay, don't know St. Mary's. So give us an overview of the school, its focus, its mission, and what makes it stand out here.
Yeah. Our mission is to serve students, put the student at the center of everything that we do. As a Lasallian Catholic institution, we focus much of our efforts on students that are first generation or maybe have been dealt a tough hand economically. And then, of course, we serve all students, right? There's some things that are really distinctive about St. Mary's. If you look at us in education, we're the only teacher education program in the state that you can complete in 4 years and then be in a classroom. In fact, we have a partnership with Diablo School District right here in the East Bay to help with training teachers and a clinical practicum kind of setting, which is, I think, pretty unique. So that's a really distinctive program. Our business school offers a wide variety of majors and minors, lots of good internship opportunities, career development. We're strong in the natural sciences. So if you look at both life science, earth science, physical science, any of those three broad categories, we're pretty strong there. And then across the core of humanities and social science, the same kind of thing. And we're getting into health professions now. We're starting a nursing program, which is exciting for us. So I think we bring a really strong academic core that's well respected nationally. And I'm really proud of the fact that we're one of the few colleges in the country, the only school in California, and the only Catholic school that's recognized as a college that changes lives. That's a very select group. When you look at U.S. News, they measure what your freshmen look like when they enter. If you look at the colleges that change lives group, they look at what do you do with your students while they're there. And so I'd much rather be in that collection than maybe the other. The other thing I'd say is we offer a lot to the East Bay. We have the only accredited museum in all of Contra Costa County, the whole county. We're the only accredited museum is our museum here at St. Mary's, and it's an amazing collection. We're the #1 place for the William Keith collection. And if your listeners aren't familiar with Keith, he was the premier California landscape artist in the late 1800s, early 1900s. In fact, he went around with John Muir. John Muir's out looking at the California wilderness, and Keith is basically painting what they see. And his collection is amazing. You look at the paintings of Mount Diablo from the late 1800s or Marin County in 1905 or whatever. It's amazing. I'm very fortunate. Sitting in my office, I'm looking at Yosemite Falls and his oil painting on canvas of that. So we house a lot of William Keith paintings. Unfortunately, we can't exhibit all of them. That's how many we have. We don't have a big enough museum to have them all on display. But anyway, I digress. I think we bring a lot to the East Bay and not just what we do academically for our students. I think we enhance the community with the athletics and music. And in fact, I went to a concert around Christmas time where we had 2 high schools in from the East Bay performing with our award-winning gold medalist choir that was in the world competition in New Zealand. What a thrill for those high school students to come do that in front of a giant audience. There's a lot to be proud of with St. Mary's. You can probably tell I'm very proud to lead this.
No, I think that's great. And I'm looking forward that we should host a reception at this museum and get some community leaders, nonprofit leaders, business leaders out there and promoting it.
It's a great idea, Jared. And I tell people, because we're open most days of the week. We're not open Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesday through Sunday. I'll run into people that have visited the museum and they're just blown away at the collection. They just don't know that this even exists at St. Mary's. And having gotten involved a little bit with the Walnut Creek Chamber and the Visitors Bureau, there's a lot of people that come and stay in Walnut Creek. There's 6 or 7 hotels there. They do great business. And I want St. Mary's to be on the list. If you're here with a family for a swim meet,
Right.
which I see a lot of in the summer, I want you to come by and check out St. Mary's. Pop into the museum, look around a little bit, but have a picnic lunch out on the lawn.
It's a beautiful campus. And actually, I have 3 daughters, 10, 8, and 5. And I've been saying to my wife, like, we should get a group of their friends together and take them to go see the women's softball team or
Oh,
volleyball and inspire them in sports and academics at the same time.
well, interesting you mentioned softball. And just a few weeks ago, your alma mater, Florida State, was here playing St. Mary's.
I didn't know that.
Florida State's, they're a pretty consistent Oklahoma City College World Series. I was proud of the Gales. We lost that game either 2-0 or 3-0, but we hung with them the whole way.
I wish I
Had
had
tomahawk
realized that.
chocolate, the whole thing.
I gotta get more, I gotta pay more attention now that you've got 2 Pacific Ocean colleges on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Yeah.
Right.
Walnut Creek, where historic meets modern and urban blends with hometown, where there is something for everyone: food, art, and music, all at the base of Mount Diablo. Work or play, we've got you covered. Come and experience our laid-back Californian lifestyle and metropolitan flair. Visit Walnut Creek and go Calipolitan.
Talk about capacity at the university and what is your vision for the future? Because you talked about more applications, but you have a small campus. Do you have capacity to expand and increase number of students or what?
Yeah, we actually do. COVID hit St. Mary's kind of tough, as it did all universities, but smaller schools got hit a little harder than the bigger ones, the Florida States of the world, let's say. And so for us, we went from over 4,000 students to just under 3,000 students. And that's what we're building back. And so, yes, we have capacity. As nursing begins to ramp up, we think that's a real opportunity for us to move from looking just at nursing into physical therapy, occupational therapy, a number of health professions that we think could be really good. We're excited about what the possibilities might be out at Shadelands in Walnut Creek. We recently toured that facility and saw all the different things that are offered there. I think there's potential to really provide a valuable service here in the East Bay. You take nursing as an example. California has a massive nursing shortage. It's crazy, Jared. It was in either the San Francisco Chronicle or the LA Times. I don't remember which. And it said something like, if I remember it right, 30,000 nurses. We need that many across the state of California. It was in the tens of thousands. And I sent that article around to people because I just found it shocking.
Right.
And we had some colleagues that had a meeting down at UCLA and they received about, I think it was 9,000, maybe 10,000 applications for 120 spots in nursing.
People, you just need capacity.
And we're willing, unlike some of the other schools, we want to grow some of these programs. Sutter and John Muir have big investments in the East Bay. The population's getting older, so they're going to need health professionals. And what better place to train those health professionals than St. Mary's, where we have a strong science background to begin with. You add on that, curriculum encourages creativity, collaboration, innovation, and we do that while teaching our students about ethics and how to make a difference in the world. I think there's a lot of industries that need St. Mary's graduates, but healthcare is a really nice fit.
Yeah, it definitely comes up, and there's a growing workforce initiative. And a lot of the medicals say, yes, everybody knows there's a doctor and nurse, but how do you start working with those high schools like you're talking about and others to say, hey, we need techs to do x-rays. And that's a good paying job that you don't necessarily need the 4-year degree on, but we need people to go through those physical therapist shortage
Right.
here in the East Bay. And I've had ER visits where nurses have flown in from Arizona because they get paid better here. So they'll come in their Airbnb for 3 to 5 days at a time, work 12-hour, 16-hour shifts, and then go home for 2 weeks.
It's the profession needs more people. And so I think we'll be filling a need there that will be helpful to the broader Contra Costa County community.
And talk about hospitality because you mentioned work with Visit Walnut Creek and the hotels, but you're also launching a hospitality program, right?
We've got our business school dean looking into, we haven't quite got to that stage.
Okay. You are investigating the opportunity to
That's right.
expand business majors and provide them with hospitality.
We know a couple things. We know that today's students, if you look at what they indicate when they take a PSAT or ACT, hospitality management is an emerging field. And the best program in the country is Cornell. The big one out on the West Coast is UNLV, which makes sense. That's a tourist town, if you will. And so we know that there's a couple big programs around our area, not quite as much. We know that student demand is high. We have an outstanding business school. So what we did was we have our business school dean and some others looking into, because we think that's an area that would fit nicely with what we do in management anyway, and could be a nice side project. But we're not quite ready to say we've got it yet. With nursing and some other things starting in the fall of 25, I think that's something we're looking at for potentially fall of 26. We just want to do a little more research on it, make sure we understand it all right. But it's the same kind of thing that we're looking at in many different areas. We want to be a school that is grounded in strong academic traditions, but is also looking forward and determining what it is that our community, our society needs, and what is it our students are interested in.
Okay. Let's talk about academics and technology and the advent of AI, which can't read a newspaper without reading AI. I don't think I can get through a day anymore as a professional without using some sort of AI tool, the most known ChatGPT. I remember in talking to the chancellor of the Contra Costa Community College District, she said about 2 years ago when ChatGPT just became a topic, all the professors laughed at it. Now they're struggling to keep up and incorporate it, knowing teachers are writing papers with it. Just talk in general, how does the college, your college, how do other colleges embrace AI and student use, and how does learning shift it?
It's a great question. And I, similar to the chancellor, as someone who's taught graduate students for a long time, I watched the debate evolve from we can't have this anywhere in our curriculum to let's make sure they cite it like a source, same way you would a reference book that you're using. I think higher education needs to embrace this technology, right? Because if not, we're not preparing our students for the future in which they're going to live. And I'd rather have strong St. Mary's graduates with excellent ethics thinking about how AI is going to impact our world. And one of the things that we're talking about, very preliminary, but I imagine we're going to head down this road, is I like the idea of data analytics across every major, not just the scientists, not just the business people. I want the history major, the Shakespeare major, the students that are in humanities and social science learning about data analytics and how we analyze big data. What role does AI play in that? I have a daughter who's a PhD candidate scientist back at Syracuse University. She said to me the other day, she studies earth science here in California, even though she's in Syracuse. And she was telling me how using AI, she could process, it was something like, I don't know, I don't want to overstate it, but it was it was so much data. And she could just run it overnight and come in the next day, and then she could start analyzing it. And it was incredible to me. And she said, Dad, that would have taken me 4 months before. And now I can just, and I come in and she's still the one who's putting her brains behind what all the data says. But the way she can process it, she can get the results, she can get some analysis if she wants to out of AI. I just think it's the future. And it would be like higher education saying, yeah, we don't really need lights in the classrooms. Let's stick with the candles. It just wouldn't make no sense to me. But it's a debate that's emerging across college campuses. And it's a debate about how are we going to use this? How are we going to use this new tool? You think about the applications in science, the applications in medicine, the applications in economic development and business. We need to educate our students on how to use these tools because that's what they're going to need to be able to do. I think the part of the conversation that we need to engage more deeply in at St. Mary's is, what does that look like when we try to put it across all majors? Like it's a conversation I haven't had enough depth with our faculty on, but I keep coming back to the idea that data analytics, utilization of AI, how we process big data, how we analyze big data, I just think that's applicable across any academic discipline. And I think when you get out in the employment space, when our graduates leave St. Mary's, much of the world is interdisciplinary. Don't end up with a job that's just biology. There's some out there like that, but it might be more biotechnology or bioengineering or things that are cutting across different disciplines. And so I think that's something we need to do as good a job as we possibly can for our students, because that's what they're going to need. I think, Jared, the smart institutions, and I like to think St. Mary's is one of those, are going to get ahead of this and begin to think about, how do we maximize our students' learning capability in this space? Because that's what they're going to need to know.
Yeah, we just had a K-12 tech episode, and the former superintendent on there, Dr. Michael Connors, was talking about just how the ethics, which you mentioned, and teaching them ethical uses of it. He's now, if you're using it to write your paper, right, by itself and handing that in, no. But if you're using it for ideas and to your research, there's ways that we could start teaching students how to use these research tools and this technology. As you said, a long answer, but it's a complicated question that academic is trying to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the smart institutions, there's two ways you can go about it. And I think sometimes in higher ed, the easy way is we just do this, right? We say, we'll see how it all plays out. And we don't quite want to go there. I remember when I worked at a different institution than St. Mary's, and there was a big discussion about, should we let laptops in the classroom because students might use the laptop to surf the web. And I remember saying in those meetings, if they're surfing the web, then we need to look at the instructor and say to the instructor, what kind of value are you adding to this class? Because if they're sitting in there on their laptop surfing the web, I might suggest that they're not getting a lot out of the course. But the idea that we would say to students, or you can't bring an iPad in, what are we talking about here? And so I think we can end up in a trap where AI becomes a little bit like that. And I don't think that's wise.
Let's talk about, how does this school work with the community colleges here? I know you talked about working with the high school district. How do you attract some of those students and partner with the local community colleges on your programs?
It's a great question. We've tried to create memos of understanding and articulation agreements so that students coming from a Diablo Valley know exactly how things are going to look when they come to St. Mary's. One of the things that I think we at St. Mary's need to do a better job of is talk about why you'd pick St. Mary's over maybe a Cal State or a UC, right? California has probably the most developed community college program in the country.
Right.
And you can go from a California community college to a Cal State school, but there's going to be programs impacted. You're not guaranteed that you're going to complete in 2 years, 3 years after you make the transfer. Sometimes it can run 6 years to get through some of our public institutions. That's a different problem. I'm not charged with fixing that one. But we need to do a better job of telling our story of what it looks like to come from Diablo Valley to St. Mary's College and make it a 2+2 program so that you're done, you're earning the money to pay back whatever student loans you might have needed to take out. I mean, one of the great crimes here in America is we have many students who enter higher education, take on a significant amount of loans, and they don't earn their degree, Jared. And in that case, we've done the worst possible service to those students. We've encouraged them, they've taken on debt, and now they don't have the degree which will help them pay back the debt. And that's what I worry about with community college students in particular. And I think as a private institution, people think, oh, the price makes us prohibitive. We'll never be able to afford to go to St. Mary's. We have great programs for community colleges. Is it going to be more expensive than a CSU? Yes. Will you get done quicker? Yes. Does that mean you start your earning power sooner? Yes. I think if people actually looked at the economics of it, 2 years at St. Mary's versus 3.5 or 4 at a public institution, and you add in the earning power, I've done the math, you're going to come out ahead at St. Mary's. But that's not that's not what we've told people. They think you go to a community college, you transfer to a 4-year school. I think we're a great option, and we're starting to pursue that more and more, particularly around the Bay Area, because we know that our academic quality is solid. We're highly ranked in many different programs. And so I want to make the case that if you selected a community college out of high school, most people, the data tells us, do that because of cost. They're maybe going to live at home and save some money. Heck, BART will take you pretty close to St. Mary's, and we're going to have a great academic experience for you, and we're going to ensure that you complete. And we're not going to have impacted programs that create blockages where you can't get through. But we need to grow it better, Jared. And what I just said to you, we need to be saying at the College of Marin, Mount Diablo, all these different places, because I don't think we've positioned ourselves as a very good option for community college students. And we are. And we've created some nice scholarship programs that go along with that. We've done some things that make us more affordable. I think we've fallen short on telling our story as well as we should.
You talked a little bit about earning potential and coming out of the school. Where do you see St. Mary's ranking in the Bay Area in terms of people coming out, getting good jobs? How does St. Mary's work with employers to get their attention to say, hey, we're a good program. You want to be looking at students here?
Yeah, the Bay Area has taken it on the chin, so to speak, for a while. I think San Francisco has been beat up in the media, and we've had some tougher days, I guess, is what I would say. And I still believe there's so much that is offered to students who want to study in this area. If we don't talk about all the advantages of being in this part of the country and the types of internships you can connect with, we are, 40 minutes, 50 minutes from the innovation capital of the world. I mean, that's what Silicon Valley is. That's where things are created and imagined. And it doesn't just happen in the Silicon Valley. We have that happening in the East Bay. So if you're a student that wants to be involved in innovation, technology, shaping the future, my goodness, why wouldn't you come to a place like St. Mary's, where you're going to get the personalized attention while you're in the class? You're going to get career advisement and guidance from basically the time you enter. And we can connect you with just about any company in the world. And many of them are headquartered right here in this area. I think that's the piece that we're just, again, I don't think we've told our story very well. And if I was a young person, I think about my own kids, the opportunity to study we're a gorgeous campus in a beautiful part of the country. The weather's spectacular, and you've got all the world's problems and all the world's opportunities right in this area. If you want to work on any of the world's problems, we've got them. They're all right here. You can't pick a bigger laboratory, no matter what your field is, than here. We're in the top 5% in the United States for earning potential among all schools and colleges. And that's according to pay scale. They're using data of our graduates and their paychecks. Your initial question that you asked, we're a great return on investment. Yes.
And as a parent, I'll ask this because you just referenced it. What advice do you have for parents with young children out there preparing their kids for college in the future?
I think the first piece of advice I have for parents is it will be here quicker than you imagine. And I say that as a parent, right? I think about how quickly my daughter went from trudging out to the school bus with her little lunchbox to now we're going on college visits. And it seems like it was just an overnight and that happened. So first thing I'd say is soak it all in because they grow up quick. Be at those moments the whole time, every chance you can. Second thing I'd say is college remains the best investment you can make in yourself. If we look at the national data, we know that a college graduate is going to earn about $1.3 million more over their lifetime than a high school graduate would. That's just for a basic college graduate to a basic high school graduate. If you're a business major, you say, hey, If I'm going to take out $30,000 in loans to make 1.2 million, if I take out 60,000, can I make 2.5 million? It doesn't work quite like that. But the higher you go up, a master's just only increases that number. So it's a great investment. Expose them to many different kinds of schools. That's the great thing about our country, right? You can go to big schools, small schools. You can go to schools that are inner city, suburban, rural, religious affiliated, not public, private. There's so many different options in America. And that's the other thing I say. Start your college search when your kids get into their sophomore year. Don't let it go past that. But the biggest thing, the biggest reason I say that is you want students to have the time to find what's the right fit for them and to find the place. Florida State must have been the right fit for you. Did you grow up in Florida? Maybe you knew it from growing up. I don't know how you ended up at Florida State.
I finished high school. I grew up in the Northeast and finished high school my junior and senior year in Florida. So
There you go.
Florida schools made sense. I was new to the state and I work in government and politics. And so being in a state capital in a small city made a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Where was the right place? And that's the part that this is particularly fresh on my mind because we're coming out of this whole season with students deciding where they want to go to college. And I see the stress and anxiety on their faces. And it's usually because they have too many choices, right? They didn't do the winnowing down. So they started with maybe 15 schools and they got it to 12 and they applied to those 12 and they got into 10. Now you have 10 choices, right? Or if you can start that search early, you begin to winnow it down. And I think it makes it easier in the end to decide. Like anything, if you're going out to buy any kind of product, if you have 10 options as opposed to 3, it can make the decision a little tougher. Do that education piece to figure out what type of school, what type of place, and then of course visit. That's one of the most important things you can do is get out and see places because that more than anything else gives a student a sense of what it's like. Walk around, kick the tires a little bit, see what it's going to be like to go to school there.
And inspire them to what they're working for. Hit subscribe and leave us a review. We have new episodes on the East Bay every week.
I have great respect for people that do hard manual labor every day. I have tremendous respect for them because I went through college working at a pest control company to help pay the bills. And my job's hard as president of St. Mary's, but I'll tell you, hauling tarps up on top of a roof to termite a house, that's hard work. It helped me understand why I probably wanted to be in college and why I might want to do something different. And I don't mean that in any way to be passing judgment on those that do that kind of work every day. I admire them. It's hard. My uncle worked for a garbage company his whole life. That's hard work, getting out on a cold morning and hauling cans and doing all that. I have it pretty easy compared to that, but
Yeah.
college offers those opportunities, right? The chance to really invest in yourself and plan a future that sometimes you can't imagine when you start college. You don't know where it's going to lead, but that process is really important. That was a very long answer, but it's a big moment when students go off to college. It's a big moment for them. It's a big moment for their families, for everybody involved. Get on it.
Before we head out, any final thoughts? Anything I haven't asked that you want to share?
Well, the only thing I would add or share is, I'm really proud of the team here at St. Mary's. We have a lot of great people that work at this institution, and I would be remiss if I ended our time together without expressing my appreciation for everyone who is on our campus and who makes a difference and makes this place really magical for the students who come. It's an amazing place. If you come and visit St. Mary's, it must be something in the water because it'll just get into you. And this community is really supportive and tight-knit. And I think that's what college is about. In big schools, people have to find their people, right? You find your group, you find your niche, if you will. And we do that at St. Mary's too, but I think there's much more camaraderie and it's a little more collaborative. It's a place that's very supportive. And so I'm thankful for the faculty and staff and all the people that have been here that have created that kind of community. If you're a prospective student or a family out there, give us a look. I think you'll like what you find. It's easy to do, Jared. It's a good place. And so when you talk about St. Mary's, I'm really honored and humbled to lead this institution. And it is an incredible place. And I think people see that when they come. It's a reason we're 15 percentage points above the national average on retention. Students come here and they like it, and they graduate in 4 years. I think that's what we have to offer.
Thank you, St. Mayor President Roger Thompson.
Oh, it's been great chatting with you, Jared.
Wait, don't leave yet. Hit subscribe. Make sure you get the weekly updates. We have a new episode every Wednesday for stuff happening in the East Bay. In the meantime, follow me on LinkedIn, Jared Asch, or check out our firm where we have a weekly newsletter and blog at Capstone Government Affairs on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today on the Capstone Conversation.